All right, guys, here we are. This is Mike L. from the Comic Book Syndicate. We're at Detroit Comics. We just wrapped up another nerdy book club. We're with our pal Jim. And Jim, we just read The Black Panther, the latest incarnation of the Black Panther. And I want you to tell everybody who wrote it and who drew it, please.
Okay, we had Ta-Nehisi Coates was the writer of it, and it was illustrated by Brian Seltfreeze.
And what separates these creators, or at least the writer, from the typical comic book creator?
Well, we know that Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's won National Book Award and also some kind of a Genius grant. And so this is his first foray into the comics. And so we have to kind of look at this from that kind of a perspective, a fiction writer trying to learn a new genre.
So overall, would you say he was successful transitioning from novels to comic books?
I think we can see his struggle to do so. A lot of themes, a lot of seeds dropped relatively quickly that I think we know that people, according to comments, kind of had a hard time with. But I think as the stories go on, we'll see him become more comfortable with the genre. I know that I'm buying the next two trade copies, so I liked it well enough and saw enough progression that I wanted to read more.
So if you could summarize it very briefly, how would you describe the plot of this trade?
Okay, well, I think the main plot is we have Black Panther, who's a king. He's a superhero. He leaves his kingdom for a while. It gets ruled by his sister, I think, for a while. He comes back. I think that the underlying theme is he's put in a role as king that he's not so sure he wants. And I think we're going to see that played out if we were to read more issues.
Now, one thing that Brian Kelly has given this comic credit for is bringing in new readers, outside readers who would not typically read comics. Right. What type of audience would you say this comic is geared towards?
Well, one of the things that struck me the most was the feminist aspect of it, because we really do have a theme where there's a conflict between the patriarchy and the matriarchy. And, I remember we talked one day about the Bechdel test. Mm-hmm, yeah. And I wish we could have talked more about that tonight, as in we have those two strong female characters who are lovers. And I would have liked to maybe dwell into that a little more to find out, how does this stack up from that kind of a perspective?
I know that a lot of people complain that it was only 4 issues. Is this a good sampling, or do you think is it just too little or too much, or what do you think?
I don't know. I think it's okay. I think we always have to, when we're reading the first volume of a trade, I think we always have to kind of take that into account, that we're getting plot points laid down, theme seeds laid down, and so we have to be a little forgiving, I think, of the author. So I can see how people would comment that it wasn't enough. I wasn't bothered by it. So.
Now, you're famous for bringing a lot of detailed research notes that we all appreciate, except for Dano. So what would you say was your research note that sort of went over the best tonight, or what got the biggest reaction out of the people today?
Boy, that's a good question. Well, two come to mind. The first one being that Ta-Nehisi Coates specifically talking about that theme of that struggle between being thrust into a role you're not sure you want and being who you are. But the second was, and this is a former Dungeons & Dragons player, I love this, is that he was influenced by 3 things, and his 3 things that influenced him and his love of words was hip-hop, Dungeons & Dragons, and Marvel Comics. Yes. And I love that. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, you know what? And I had a couple of factoids of my own, and I got to point out 2 of them just because they went over well with the crowd tonight. Yeah. Black Panther's original name was Cole Tiger, and Black Panther is the first legitimate black superhero. There was only 2 lead black characters before him in comics, but he's the first one, so we got to give credit to Jack Kirby and Stan Lee for creating him. Absolutely. He's a very important character. This is a very important run for Black Panther. There's going to be a movie coming out soon, so do you recommend this as a good place for people to get a sample of the Black Panther?
Oh, I absolutely do, especially if you have patience to understand he's setting up things, and then maybe go on to the second or the third trade after that so you can kind of see how everything plays out.
Here we are at Detroit Comics at the Nerdy Book Club. We want to hear your review of Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 1. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please leave comments at the bottom and give us your rating. And don't forget to like and subscribe.